Dario, this is the Global Digest think tank group. I don't know, how do you see yourself? You are journalist or you are activist, or how can you say yourself?
First of all, thank you very much again for inviting me, and I'm excited to be part of this initiative and to be your guest. Well, if I go back to my background, originally I am a management engineer. I studied both a bachelor and a master here in Italy at Milano Polytechnic University. And then I specialized in international business, and that already gave me a perspective on macroeconomics, competition policies, and especially the area that already was interesting me the more was the connection of economy with international relations. So during this time, I always had my main passion, which was different, which was writing, telling stories, and in general, I was lucky to travel a lot in my life. And so I tried to learn everything I could about global affairs, about many places around the world. And I always had the dream to actually become a journalist. So it was then in 2022 when I moved to Costa Rica for 1 year, and I studied another master in media, peace, and conflict at the University for Peace. And it's there that I really embarked in my new path of being a journalist. So yeah, I would say right now I am a journalist. Yeah.
I
I've been many times to Asia, in particular to Thailand. I have never been in Myanmar. I know right now it would be impossible to hear their perspectives on, I think, a situation that, at least from the Western media, I don't want to downplay the important role that there are so many great also journalist outlets from Myanmar, from the Myanmar diaspora. But in the Western media, it's often forgotten the
I
situation of Myanmar, and even in the international community, to be honest. Actually, I already covered Myanmar twice, in actually in podcast forms. The first time was back in 2022. I had a short-lived podcast in Italian, and at the time I made an episode covering the humanitarian situation of Myanmar and the conflict, that the civil war that just started since 1 year, because the military coup was in 2021. If I remember correctly, it was February 2021.
right.
So that was the first time, and I remember also reading a few books on Myanmar to prepare that episode. And the story is like super complex, and of course, like there is also the role of history, the role of colonialism, of creating different state entities and having very different people living in the same place. And
Right.
then, while I was at the University for Peace, I made another podcast episode. We still have this podcast. It's called Over the Borders, and we have conversations with students and alumni of the University for Peace, since it's such an academic institution where you really have people coming from all corners of the world. So this was in January 2023. We made an episode covering again Myanmar and the humanitarian situation, also some projects related to education for kids from Myanmar that were now living as refugees in Thailand. And then, regarding criminality in particular, I'm actually doing research now, because it's an upcoming story that I'm planning to do regarding the notorious issue of scam cities and forced criminality, which is now spread in several areas of Southeast Asia. So Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, these are the areas most affected for different reasons and for different factors, but the criminal dynamics are very similar behind them. But interested in particular to the ones that are inside Myanmar, because I'm also interested in this story to still have a lens and to have a bit of coverage on the situation of Myanmar, this, apart from the transnational criminal dynamics. So, and also there should be the general election upcoming in December 2025, if I am correct.
right? The military junta intention to do elections without feasible. They attempt to do it, which means just theoretically just announcement about election, but that is not feasible. People able to vote their own democracy uh, exercise. They should able to do exercise on it, but there's no circumstances. The military, I mean, it is not the purpose of military. They can put multiple vote as they want, and then they can announce it. The intention is visible.
Like organized crime doesn't spare anybody. Like the dynamics of international, for example, trafficking in legal economies, they can always affect different countries in different ways. But like for example, the case of Costa Rica saw an increase in violence, in homicides due to becoming more and more relevant as a transit hub for cocaine coming from South America, directed to the United States, Canada, and Europe too. And then after studying in Costa Rica, I worked for some months with Inside Crime, which is a media outlet, a think tank, which covers organized crime specifically in Latin America and the Caribbean. So during that time, I really focused on that area, which is also one of the most notorious worldwide, especially because of cocaine trafficking.
All right.
But after that, I started my own project, which is called the Hampa Stories, Deframing Stories. Hampa Stories is again a podcast series in which in every episode I talk with like you with different experts from around the world. And Deframing Stories is the side project, a YouTube channel with a reporter from the ground. And in that, so since I started this project, I am focusing really all around the world, depending on the story. I covered the Captagon, which is an amphetamine trafficking from Syria. So which was a very interesting and relevant factor in prolonging the life of the Assad regime. I covered the epidemic, methamphetamine epidemic and HIV epidemic in Fiji, for example. So we're talking about the South Pacific. Of course, a lot of stories from Europe. And also, I'm interested also in the Asian continent. So regarding scam centers, yeah, there are also kind of scam centers that operate from Europe. In particular, there was a quite recent investigation that was uncovering phone scam centers and also related like to fake investments, and they were based in Georgia, if I remember correctly. But right now, I'm specifically focusing on the scam cities that are very unique right now to Southeast Asia, and from the knowledge that at that moment I have. Of course, there are people that know much more. I know that in Myanmar, there is, of course, the factor of the lack of control from the state, but actually, many of the scam cities are like kind of at least, how do you say, coordinated with the military junta or with some of the ethnic armies that are aligned with the military junta. The main actor behind the scam cities in Southeast Asia are Chinese crime syndicates. And for a while, China was also kind of closing their eyes with this issue, but more recently they also started a crackdown, especially in some of the scam compounds that were closer to the border with China, because a lot of Chinese citizens also fell trap of both the online scams, but also of the fake job postings, which basically then involves slavery and forced criminality. But then in Cambodia and Laos, I know that these scam cities were developed after inside some special economic zones in the country where gambling is legal. And so it started with cities connected with the gambling industry. And then they became also hub for online scams and forced criminality.
Right. So there are many cases. It's true. There are a lot of increasing terrorism in Africa, scam or such kind of terrorists you abducting people and exchange for money, something like
Hmm.
this. So it is increasing North Africa next to the Mediterranean Sea below Italy, probably. There
Yeah,
are also dictatorship in those countries.
and to be honest, right now Italy is not the best place to like start journalism regarding like the opportunities and even like the salaries. So at the moment
That's
I'm running independently. There are for sure, let's say, talking about the Italian environment or European environment, some private media companies that can are willing to fund some podcasting project. Like, of course, I have my political opinion, but I mean, politics is in everything. You know, you see it a lot, even in the economic system. And so, when you cover issue like organized crime, of course, there is connection with politics, but my type of journalism that I aim to do is more like of reporting coverage. Uh, doesn't mean that someone doesn't have to take a stance, but I'm not aligned with any party in Italy, or I try
it.
to keep that part on for myself, you know.
See. In Italy now,
Hmm.
your government is a conservative party or
Yeah. It's conservative. It's more conservative and definitely aligned on the right side. And we are witnessing this quite a lot in again in Europe and of course in the United States. I feel like a lot of the things that happen in the United States always have consequence. We don't have only two parties, but many different parties. Usually the major ones have always been the ones, at least since I was born, the ones not, let's say, more on the center left or center right. There are different topics in which you will see, you know, a more conservative and a more progressive, if we want to call both like that. Definitely, I think that one of the biggest topics in Europe has been immigration. And I would say that on both sides we've had, you know, very populist rhetorics, but definitely I would say that the right in Europe is pushing for limiting immigration, for closing the borders, very often like with a populist approach that is not very feasible. But you know, like when uh, there is a lack of integration programs in the countries where there is a lack of economic disparities. The situation can become problematic. If I take the example of Italy, you will have the conservative parties that are usually against abortion, that are usually, for example, against gay marriages, to make the most simple examples.
they if they don't want immigration, they have to check the source of immigrated immigrated country. Those countries are usually authoritarian and corrupt government
Mhm.
and those kind of problematic countries,
Yeah,
European or American country. They should not do business with those countries. But
uh,
paradoxically, they are doing business with them.
yeah, but you know, like one big factor we see even a different um, trend of immigration that started much early, for example, in France compared to Italy, is also a consequence of the politics of colonialism, like depriving of resources and opportunities many areas of the world. Then the people will come where there is opportunities and where there is a tie. So France colonized so many countries in the African continent, and so the migration phenomenon started much earlier. Also, the human trafficking business is really related with organized crime that can be at also at the state level. And for sure in the Mediterranean area there is a huge business of human trafficking, especially from countries in North Africa, and it has also in Italy connection with some mafia groups that would exploit migrants coming to Italy, maybe without legal documentation yet, and they will exploit migrants in some areas of Italy, basically as a modern form of slavery, working in the agricultural sector for very, very low pay and in very inhumane conditions.
Human trafficking by mafia, right?
That some organized crime groups in Italy are not the ones usually doing the human trafficking, but they might benefit from the human trafficking for sure.
I see. So they are kind of cooperated with human
Yeah,
trafficking.
there is always connections worldwide between different criminal groups that can take advantage of a specific business or expertise. Then, of course, like depends on the illegal economy, you will have competition or you will have cooperation and partnerships.
Right. I mean, I'm not blaming the European country not to allow those immigrants. They should either support to change the government in those sorts of country, like dictator or any authority. They should support them to change there, so that were not able to come a lot of immigrants, and don't do business, don't give a lot of economic benefit, or they are surviving and they are prolonging dictatorship and authoritarian bad government because of trading and international business, economic benefit, or even diplomatic benefit. Everything should not. Then that makes sense. You can block immigration. That is a paradox, I mean, you can block immigration. Meanwhile, you should not do business with the source country. They may know or they may not know. I'm not sure. Or they're aware. And also, you mentioned about criminal dynamic. You did some activity in Africa and also probably in Asia, in case of criminal dynamic related to Burma, including scam center or scam city, because this can be together in many cases. Scam city also becomes scam. They have scam, a lot of scam center, or including cyber warfare, cybercrime, probably, and also drug. And although many people see those crimes activity in the border area, like in Myanmar border, Myanmar China border, also in the Thailand border, many other places, and last time I also talked with one of Canadian scholar about those scam center and those ethnic armed group, and the main, I think, the main shadow of those crime activity is military government, because many cases drug or those things, they did not cross the border. They comes many. If you do research, there are many cases. It directly came from the central part of the country, like Mandalay, Napier City, Yangon City, and then come to the sea, Indian Ocean. From Indian Ocean, that go to other part of the world. So it means central part of the country drug came from central part of the country of Myanmar is it's mean it has something to do with the military junta, Without their acknowledgement, it is not possible to came out of the central part of the country. So it has a lot of influence of it's under the shadow of military government, all this many crime. Also, those at the border, also those arms group are also military junta proxy armed group. Most of them, like
Hmm.
STEM cities, those are almost all are they are proxy of military junta. They are part of they are cooperated with military junta. That's military junta inside Burma, and military junta is backed by Chinese government. The bigger share is from China. So these are the thing, and those arms group at the border is share. They have a share of military junta. The military junta have a share of Chinese, communist Chinese government. So even though you can see there are many scam center itself inside China also.
As I said, this is the story I'm working at the moment, and I'm still digging into, which is being covered a lot, by the way, in the recent years. So I know that in the past, some areas of Burma, especially the ones bordering Thailand and Laos, were part of the famous Golden Triangle, which was one, at first, was the major poppy of the opium cultivation in the world. That's where then the opium was refined into heroin, especially in the 70s. Then Afghanistan became the major opium producer, and also some areas of Mexico. So
But
this part of the
now Burma is the biggest opium producer country.
I wasn't aware that it was
Afghan is
still.
Afghan is number two now. Number one is
Mhm.
Burma.
I wasn't aware that the production scaled up this much again. But this was to say that in general, already, when you have, for example, a military government, you will always, not always, but you can often have these illegal economies that work as another source of profits and of earnings for the military junta to the example that I made before, also Syria was a hotspot of synthetic drugs, amphetamines that were becoming addiction epidemics in many neighboring countries in the Middle East, and that was a source of earnings.
So Kaptago.
Captagon, yeah. So that was
That is produced inside Syria.
yeah, it used because now with the fall of Assad regime, they were discovering so many how do you say warehouses and production facilities. It was a drug that originally was legally available, I think, in the 80s. It was produced in Germany, and then because of the side effects, it was banned in most of around the world. It started to
So,
get illegally produced in the Balkans, and then the production shift to some areas of the Middle East, in particular Lebanon and Syria,
so
because there was a lot.
you want to say those are produced by under Assad regime.
Yes, yes, yes. His
Assad
brother.
regime, they are the one responsible for the.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Assad's brother, Maher al-Assad, was directing a huge drug operation, producing Captagon. They were cooperating also with the Hezbollah, the military group from Lebanon, which was an ally of Assad, and then they would smuggle massive amounts of this drug, Captagon, around especially Gulf countries where there was a higher economic availability. In the case of Myanmar, as you already said, and in the case of scam cities, definitely to have such huge compounds where there is a massive amount of people. I know that in Myanmar currently there is around 100,000 people that are estimated to be prisoners, basically, into scam compounds and victims of forced criminality. Usually, how it works, it's that fake job postings are published, and the target are people from Southeast Asian countries, so from Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, but not just there, also South Asia, so India, Bangladesh, and even some countries in Africa. And people will see these job postings. Usually, it's like a job in the tech sector, um, and they see an opportunity to work abroad. But then once they arrive and they meet with the work agencies that usually it's in Thailand, I know that there is the other side of the scam. So one side is like how they engage and basically kidnap the people that are working for them to do the online scams. And then there is the side of the online scam itself. So the target usually are people more in Western countries, especially North America, and also in China a lot. And these online scams might be related to fake investments, cryptocurrencies, and especially a lot of romance scams. So, like faking the identities of being a woman and targeting, I don't know, middle-aged men in North America, and in the end asking for money, collecting money. One thing I can say is that now, well, for sure in the job postings they put at least English knowledge as a key requisite. But right now with AI, actually, creating deep fakes is much easy. It's much easier. You can have a fake voice that can speak in different languages without needing actually a, a person doing that. It's all automatized. So, cybercrime and online scams, online extortions are gonna become even bigger because of the nefarious use of artificial intelligence.
Right. Right. So I don't know, European Union, is there any formal uh, formal step to prevent those scam center and any fraud case in online fraud case or cyber? Probably there can be also scam center or fraud case, cyber online fraud case, how to uh, prevent and how to protect in Europe. I don't know, is the European Union has formal step to do such kind of prevention or any action or any European government, Italy government? I don't know if you have any idea, any action from
So,
Europe.
mhm. So right, usually for these decisions, that's I would say a good thing in Europe. The European Union will take a coordinated policy all around the member countries. I know that they are preparing regulation of artificial intelligence. So also in the case of content that can be published and filtered, especially in the case of deep fakes. Of course, when there are regulations, widespread regulations that concern the digital world, there is always the risk also of how it's going to be used, if it can be used also to damage the privacy of citizens, um, or to limit the freedom of expression. So it's always like a big issue of debate when regulations in this field are going to be implemented. So if there are like a specific mechanism regarding the prevention or the rescue of people that are victims of online fraud, I'm not so well informed in this. What I can say is that very often you see, especially of people who were victim of online scams, of romance scams, or fake investment scams, there is also a big component of the victims is kind of a stigma and of a shame of having lost such a big amount of money. And so, like big cases, there are people that, you know, ask for help very later on in the process, or depends also how the online that the thing of the online fraud is that is difficult to track also for authorities. So once the money goes, it's very often lost. Um, so that's also part of the tricky and why it can become convenient for criminal groups to have this kind of business. It's more easy and less risky than, for example, moving a physical product like drugs.
Right.
So I would say that Europe, regarding like illegal drugs, the biggest, most profitable market for organized crime is definitely cocaine. Um, Compared to North America, Italy, not Italy and Europe was much more spared to the addiction epidemics of synthetic drugs, in particular synthetic opioids like fentanyl. And the thing is also that there is a big difference in the pharmaceutical sector because the addiction epidemic in the United States with opioids started from the pharmaceutical industries and overprescription of opioids, which then created a lot of people that after maybe recovering from a surgery or because they were obtaining very easily very strong and addictive medications, they would then start to look for the illegal drugs like heroin and then all the synthetic drugs. So there is one difference like that, and Europe has had always a much more regulated and tighter policies on pharmaceuticals, and I'm glad about that. Regarding the drug trafficking, here, yeah, this is like a huge business for big European crime groups. You have different legislations for depends on which drug. Several countries now in Europe have, for example, decriminalized cannabis, which still is an important illegal business, but the main profits concerning drug trafficking are made on cocaine. And in Italy, we have among the different mafia groups, the most powerful by far is called 'Ndrangheta. It comes from a region called Calabria in the south of Italy, but they are operating worldwide, and they were the first group to directly go to South America and make business agreements with criminal groups, for example, in Colombia. So to get the drug from the source and then transport it and manage the whole transportation. Right now, it's more, how would you say, divided in the sense that specific groups take care of a part. One group can go and do the business deal. One group can take care of the transportation. One group can take care of the wholesale delivery and everything. But yeah, definitely the biggest, most important European groups are Italian mafias, in particular 'Ndrangheta, that is operating in Colombia and in Brazil with criminal groups from there. And then criminal groups coming from the Balkans, so Albania, Serbia, Bosnia. They also sent their men in South America to directly deal with criminal groups there. And all of these dynamics, as you have the consequence of politics around the world, of conflicts, even the dynamics of organized crime have repercussions in the daily life of people and in the even social environment of a country. For example, Ecuador became in the last 3, 4 years, not more, it became one of the most violent countries in the American continent. And this is due to the fact that it became more and more a relevant hub of cocaine transportation. Ecuador is not a producer, but a lot of mobs from Albania, they moved there to make starting, for example, facade businesses of fruit transportation. Usually it works like that in order to then traffic cocaine from ports in Ecuador. And this brought, and also criminal groups from Mexico used Ecuador as a transit hub for cocaine. So what does this make it happen? What does this make happen? Um, you will have more money coming, more illegal money. The criminal groups already from Ecuador will have more expertise, more money, more weapons, more competition on profits coming from the illegal trade, and then the violence will increase. This happened in Ecuador on a very extreme scale, and it happened, as I said earlier in the episode, with Costa Rica. So all this to say, there is demand of cocaine in Europe and in North America, but the root of cocaine leaves a trace of blood uh, all around the world, starting from the source countries, from the transit countries, and of course, you will have it also here in Europe. The level of violence is not so explicit, it's not so extreme as in other areas of the world, but definitely the criminal dynamics are important. And then when you have a big group like Ndrangheta, who made already billions from illicit trade, they will start to become, let's say, more white collar, and they will start to participate in construction projects, in finance, and to launder the money that they earned from drug trafficking and enter the legal economy. So they will not even need anymore to really do the street work. They will just make the deal, have the transportation, and then have other groups that will take care of selling the drugs.
Is it mafia becoming billionaire in Italy?
It has that I think, one of the things that made me interested since a long time in the dynamics of organized crime is because it has always been present in the history of Italy since its unification in 1861, and it still has an effect on corruption. It's again not as visible as the 90s, for example, where when we had famous judges and prosecutors that were killed by the Sicilian mafia. But the level of penetration is definitely still there, and it's with an international impact.
Drangheta mafia is the biggest group, uh, organized crime group in Italy. You can say
Yeah,
that
it's yeah, in Italy by far, but it's actually one of the most uh, I would say
in Europe.
in the world. It's one
I
of
see.
the most relevant criminal groups in the world because of well, also it follows the diaspora. So you will have people that from this region migrated in different areas of the world, from Canada to the United States, Australia, for example, Germany, in Europe, Belgium. And among the many people that migrated, there were also some members of the criminal group. So this allowed the Ndrangheta families to spread all over the world and to become relevant players also in those areas. And then what during the 70s, 80s, Drangheta was doing a lot of kidnapping for ransom in Italy. So they created their economic base with this business. And then when they kind of understood that cocaine was going to become the most profitable illegal good, they did the move that distinguished them from the other competitors, which was to directly go to South America to do business deals with the criminal groups there,
See.
and that made them become billionaires.
So, do you know exactly who is the leader of Drangheta?
Uh, Usually, also for these organizations, yeah, there is kind of a
Changing all the time.
centralized leadership, but there are different families that might also be rival. So there isn't one specific leaders. There are various families that control different areas and also that are spread out all over the world.
So the leader can be time to time is changing.
Yeah, and it's not, I would say, as a central, it's not centralized. It's not like, for example, in the 90s where you had the Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian mafia, that is the one also that you see romanticized in the American mafia movies. That they had at some point a centralized a leader at the top that was during the 90s Totorina, and then you had Bernardo Provenzano, and more recently Matteo Messina Denaro. These are for the Sicilian mafia. But I wouldn't say that Ndrangheta has like a leader of the whole Ndrangheta mafia. There are different families, different clans with different alliances.
But you can say Drangheta mafia are the biggest, the
Yeah,
strongest, the powerful in
yeah, yeah.
Italy and in Europe, even in the world. So
Hmm.
you, probably we should say Italy has uh, a biggest mafia and also some mafia in you said Balkan, right? In Balkan,
Yeah.
also a lot of mafia.
Yeah, yeah. There are very powerful criminal groups also coming from
It,
Serbia.
I see. It's
Mhm.
similar to Dangita, or they are cooperating with Dangita mafia, or Dangita mafia is bigger than those Balkan mafia.
On some aspects, they are similar in the sense that you might have, you know, the uh, clans, families, so that are related by blood with each other, and they operate with also very similar logic of omerta, of silence. Some I'm not sure about the Balkans mafia, but definitely like one common theme of Italian mafias is that they have also some kind of rituals when you are initiated inside the organization. But regarding the Balkanic mafias and the Italian mafias, now currently, as I was saying, like the in the drug trade at least, there is kind of a cooperation, like on to have business advantages. So one group can be the one that make the business deal to have cocaine transported, and then the prof that cocaine stock will be shared by different groups. They will put money each on their own quota, or they will take care of different aspects of the logistics. So, for example, other very important hubs that have been used in Europe were have been the ports of Rotterdam in the Netherlands and of Antwerp in Belgium, and some now of the most important groups there that take care of collecting the cocaine in those ports are of Moroccan origin, for example. But the cocaine might be transported there by Albanian groups or by Ndrangheta groups. So the supply chain is with different players in each step.
So a lot of mafia, they are coordinating, right? Cooperating. The
Yeah,
one
it's
from Netherlands and Albania.
I wouldn't say like there, you know, there is a huge worldwide alliance of the criminal groups, but it's mostly, yeah, there can be a cooperation when it's about sharing the profits or have taking advantage of an illegal economy. There can be cooperation. Of course, there would be also violent clashes when there is a competition for profits.
if sometimes if they don't agree, they also killing each other because they
Yeah,
are
yeah, that's
mafia. They will do everything. That's the thing. And last month, probably I guess U.S. military destroyed those drug trafficker. I mean drugs dealer on the sea.
those still wasn't confirmed. If the boats and the members of these small transportations that were hit were actually part of the most notorious criminal group in Venezuela, which
I see.
was the country of origin, which Trump declared as a terrorist group, and they are called Tren de Aragua, which actually is not even such a big player in drug trafficking. Tren de Aragua became notorious in actually countries in Latin America that because again, like you had huge number of migrants coming from Venezuela because of the desperate situation of the country that moved into Colombia, into Peru, into Chile, and among them also members of organized crime, in particular this huge gang that was born in a prison, and it's called the Tren de Aragua. They entered Chile, Colombia, and Peru, and they brought, uh, of course, all their illegal businesses and violence, which was actually affecting mostly the same members of the Venezuelan diaspora. So then it became very notorious, and the US raised the alarm as if it was now penetrating the country and becoming so widespread. There had been some documented presence of the Tren de Aragua members inside the United States, but it's not comparable at all to, for example, members of some Mexican cartels.
I see. So, what U.S. military destroyed is a very small part of drug
Yes,
network, right? Because
yes,
they are
absolutely.
big mafia network and drug network. They they could not able to destroy it, right? Because
Yeah,
as you said, a lot it's very big and very widely network the drug. Even in Europe,
yeah.
European government could not able to eliminate or they never able to. I mean, uh, they cannot able to. I mean, find them or they can police cannot arrest them or
The
how,
thing is,
why or they are cooperating with those police. I don't know.
well, of course, when they reach high level, any criminal group, they will have connections and protection. But one thing is the fact that cocaine production is at the maximum levels, I think, historically in the recent years. And as long as there is demand for drugs, someone will, and there is a very huge, profitable market available. So someone will take the chance and the opportunity. So, like, there had been disastrous consequences of what has been defined, I think, by Nixon in the 70s or maybe Reagan in the 80s. I don't want to say something wrong. But starting from the United States, the so-called war on drugs, fighting drug, especially consumption, with criminalization and with the Iron Fist, and with as it was a military war, the drug trade didn't solve the problem. It actually usually increased violence, and we are still now in the current environment where organized crime is as powerful, if not more powerful, than before. So there might be alternatives that some countries are doing, at least locally, in decriminalizing the use of drug or the possession of drug. And I would say it's more also policies that target the social causes of why people rely on drugs or fall into addiction. So, for example, in the United States, there are huge economic disparities still, and a lot of these factors also will play into then drug use and abuse. And again, like right now, the fact there is a huge demand, and so someone will supply it. The logic of illicit economies is the same one of licit economies. The only difference is that licit economies might have some regulations, but that is still open to a lot of abuses from multinational corporations, for example, in polluting and in making agreements with corrupted governments. While the illegal economies don't have this, so the competition can be very violent, explicitly violent. but the logic is the same. Like where there is profit, the ethics and the morality are not really considered, sadly.
Right. Because Chinese Burmese neo scam center, those are openly visible scam city or center. They are openly there, but most Italian junket are organized not openly, invisible. You can say it's a kind of mafia scam center, but they are more like military army, military junta proxy militia. They want to say more militia. Actually, their activity is more about illicit those game and drug and although they are fighting, but it's not really for the people. We can say fighting for among themselves, and also those Chinese Burmese border. A lot of you mentioned also a factory and scam center, and they are also. I mean, uh, they are not really for the country rebuilding or the country nation building, but they are doing those illicit and maybe they are good for only those live in that scam city,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
not more than that. But what they are doing is illicit and scam and cybercrime, drugs, and they are just uh, proxy to the uh, either military junta government or Chinese communist government. So my point is, in those case, in Burmese case, those uh, those organized crimes are openly. They set up city and center, office building. But in case of your organized crime in Italy and America, they mafia and they are not openly. They are hidden
Hmm.
in visible. But in case of Burma, visible. But many cases they have similar activity.
Yeah. For sure, as you said, there are very important similarities in the sense that the final goal of all of these operations is profit, profit that can be shared by the members of the criminal group, political leaders, military leaders. If I think about Italy, for sure, now Ndrangheta as other criminal groups is definitely also interested and probably also involved in cybercrime, not as the main area of operation, but yes, it's an opportunity for profit, so they will always take it. In Italy, we have presence, especially in some areas of Chinese triads, Chinese crime syndicates. Usually, they are not in contrast with the main national mafia, let's say, national Italian mafias. They might operate in different businesses or they might, cooperate on some illegal things. Usually, the Chinese crime syndicates are more present in their own communities. So, more in the bigger Chinatowns like in Milano or especially in Prato, which is a town in Tuscany not far from Florence, where there is a huge textile district. And there is, I think, one of the biggest Chinese expatriates communities uh, for sure in Europe. But yeah, there is not direct connection between the scam cities in Southeast Asia and Burma and then Drangheta. I'm pretty sure about that. As you said, regarding the case of Burma, there are, yes, some of the ethnic armies. I remember uh, that, for example, the Wa State Army was a proxy of the Chinese government. I don't know how is the
Right.
situation now, but definitely, as you said, they were not really fighting for the liberation or the rise of their own people, but it was becoming an economy of war. So they were benefiting from the illicit traffics or illegal operations that were happening. Also because of this situation of destabilization and of lack of real control in Myanmar, because where there is the military junta, they are the first actors more involved and more benefiting from, for example, scam cities.
So in Italy, what about Chinese syndicate, those organized crimes group and Italian mafia? They don't have any connection, probably indirectly or any
Yes,
cooperation. Isn't it? No?
exactly. It can be more indirect. For example, in Prato, having a huge textile district, you will have some of the Chinese crime syndicates that, in this case, they might reach more with the local administrations, some agreements, because what they are mostly involved is human trafficking with, again, members of the Chinese community, uh, exploitation of workers in the factories, illegal production. Regarding drug trafficking, again, it's mostly related to the Chinese community. That I'm aware, Chinese crime syndicates in Italy, they don't deal with cocaine. They deal mostly with what they call shabu ice, which is methamphetamine, which is actually coming more easily from Asia, Southeast Asia, than from Latin America for the case of Europe. So yes, this is I think this is what I know. This is what I know regarding if there is any cooperation. There is not cooperation like in sharing the logistics of cocaine trafficking, for example.
Cocaine came from Latin America, right? South America.
Yes, yes, the
So
countries that produce cocaine, the major producers are in order Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. But then it's transported from different, not just from these countries, but also, for example, from Ecuador, from Venezuela too. It transit from there with the involvement for sure of members of the Maduro regime and or of the military. Then you have also minor operations in Honduras, but and then a lot of countries in Central America, of course, Panama, Costa Rica, they will be transit points, and Mexico, it's a major transit point because it borders the one of the, and I think now it's the second biggest market in the world, the United States for cocaine, because if you put Europe together, Europe is the number one market for cocaine. And then you have transit countries also in West Africa, for example, Guinea-Bissau was has been for a long time considered a major hub for cocaine with the involvement of the militaries in Guinea-Bissau, and they are transit point again for where cocaine stops, and then it's transported from there to Europe. Guinea-Bissau or Senegal, Sierra Leone are countries where cocaine transit for the final market.
so Dangita is actively transporting cocaine from Central America and South America, right? As you said,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
is actively leading. Even they have a lot of influence in Central America and South America, Dangita mafia. Even probably they have a basis or they have a kind of office or maybe
exactly.
they
Like
have
yeah, yeah, they can have
logistics
legal
probably.
businesses. They can have legal businesses there that are just a cover up for the illegal operation. For example, they might be involved in transporting fruits, or even restaurants that are a cover for their presence and what they are actually doing.
So can you say most young people, maybe nightclub or anywhere, they mostly consume the uh, uh, cocaine? And how can you say European population, how many percent are consuming cocaine?
Uh,
You can
I
estimate?
I don't remember the percentage. For usually they make market estimations. So I don't have a number for you. But for sure, I take the words of a famous Italian journalist. His name is Roberto Saviano, and he wrote several books on organized crime. In one in particular called Zero Zero Zero, where he specifically talks and about and explores the dynamics of cocaine trafficking. The fact that cocaine is really widespread, and it's not like a drug where you can tell, okay, this person is an addict. Of course, you will have bad cases of addiction, and it's a very addictive drug. But it's not like when you see the um, disastrous videos or images from the United States where you have entire neighborhoods that are full of victims of drug addictions living in the streets. In the case of cocaine and the use of cocaine, you will have many unsuspectable people that might be doctors, that might be lawyers, of course, politicians that use it. So that's why it's, of course, yeah, in nightclubs, in the nightlife, in bars, yes, it's very widespread, but like there are many users that one would not think they are doing it.
So it means using cocaine is not that much significant. It's like normal person.
Yes, it can be a person that you're not aware of.
I see. So that is the thing. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of consumption in Europe. That's why the mafia, they have a good business to dealing or transporting cocaine and drugs to Europe, So because
Hmm.
that is a consumption is there, and uh, is any government or any European police or European Union, if you know, uh, they how to tackle those mafia, including those drugs. They have any policy or any action?
Yeah, usually there is also like international police cooperation agencies like Interpol or Europol. Interpol is at global level, Europol is at the European level. I would say that in this, Italy has been ahead because it has a special division for organized crime since at least the 90s, special task forces also of prosecutors. And for example, countries like the Netherlands were almost taken by surprise when they discovered and they started to have public homicides, even of a journalist and a lawyer in Amsterdam between 2019 and 2021. And they were not prepared to deal with organized crime. So you will have these both prosecutors and police forces that are specializing in this kind of investigation. Regarding drug consumption, again, you will have different laws country by country. In some countries, it can even be decriminalized. I think in Portugal has all drugs decriminalized, so means that
They,
using it will not put you in prison. I would say that if I can give a final take on at least cocaine, the cocaine market, that maybe one policy that could help is, of course, there are so many awareness campaign since forever that this thing will kill you, will make you addicted, and people will still do it. But we have a lot of ethical consumption in the products that we use. We try to now be more sustainable in, for example, the food chain, in the clothing industry, understanding what is the impact of production. Well, like I feel like that if the awareness on what the cocaine supply chain brings with it, from the production to the transportation and all the trace of exploitation and blood that it has tied with it, maybe this will make people and consumers more aware. Of course, once people fall into addiction, it's not enough, but it can be a step also to disincentivize the consumption when you are aware that whatever you do with this product is like fueling uh, violence and blood.
Right. So it is we can see European or many government, many countries, uh, law enforcement is very weak, right? Law enforcement very weak to tackle organized crime and those mafia gang or any drug trader, dealer. So it's very weak, right? They are not successful, not very big successful to take
I wouldn't,
those.
no, I wouldn't call it weak in the sense that, there are so many challenges in, again, I'm not even sure, as I said, like the demand is always there. And there are so many opportunities for illegality to penetrate in society and even into the legal sector of economy. There are many enablers. The enablers are also the key for having organized crime. The enablers are actors in the legal world. They might be lawyer, they might be uh, working in finance, they might be working in the
Even
governments
police
that
themselves.
of course, they might be also in the police enforcement, and not might, they are also in all these
Right,
key
right.
roles that will allow organized crime to still make the step uh, ahead and also enter, launder money, and let's say legitimize all their earnings and their business. So these are also very important, and we are not there yet, I would say,
Right.
anywhere in the world.
It is understandable. You point out that even police themselves and law enforcement, even prosecutor, lawyer, judges themselves were involved with the organized crime directly or indirectly. So it will be not easy to remove all this organized crime. You know that there's a lot of challenges that understandable because of many those corruption and complicated things. And the other thing is those gang, those mafia, they are they are threatening or they are abducting or they are a kind of they try to kill them whoever uh, enforcing law enforcing, and even journalists, those gang and mafia can be targeted journalists because they are reporting about all their activity and all their information. Even ordinary citizen can be dangerous, especially uh, reporting about their activity.
Definitely in Italy, we had a lot of cases of journalists that have been threatened. In Europe, there had been journalists who have been killed. For example, in Malta, there was a famous case of a journalist reporting on the corruption in the Maltese government and the connection with organized crime. Other areas of the world, like Mexico or Colombia, being a journalist is really, really, really a risky job. But regarding the, it depends again where you investigate and which names you make. It might be more dangerous, I would say, in Italy when operating and reporting on a more local aspect of organized crime. Definitely for some of the major prosecutors still active now, they are living with security from police all their life since maybe 20, 30 years because they have been under death threat from criminal organizations. And we had cases of prosecutors and judges that have been killed in the 90s with car bombs or shot in the streets. So this aspect is still real. I would say there are areas of the world where it's more extreme, but it's still real, of course. Yeah.
Right, right. So we have to very, uh, we have to aware. a lot of journalists, including podcaster or media, anybody, we need protection. Nowadays it's a danger, gang or mafia, anybody can attack you, and they can stab you from behind. They can target that even podcaster.
Also, a big threat is regarding freedom of expression, and it can come from government or from private corporations when there are investigations that might touch aspects of, for example, environmental crime or workers' exploitation. So there can be like what, especially in Europe, journalists are more threatened of is legal attacks. You might have legal repercussions for the investigations or the story you publish. And usually these come from politicians or especially the private sector, multinational companies, and so on.
Right. So we need to protect each other. We have to prevent each other and support each other. And thank you very much, Dario, for today. We have a good discussion. And
thank you, John. It was a pleasure.